support you?
Hello, I'm Sarah Norman. I'm a senior here at Pikeville High School, but I'm also a girls varsity basketball and softball player. Girls varsity sports have never been as popular as football, boys basketball, or baseball, but the girls have had their day in the sun. Girls varsity basketball began here at Pikeville in the early 1910s, yet because of lack of interest in 1930, they had to drop women's basketball from the agenda. Then under Coach Carolyn Hall, in 1974, women's basketball began a tremendous comeback. Coach Hillard Howard led the girls to an unbelievable 3 district and 2 regional titles. Since then, no girls team has been back to state. Nowadays, the girls are still a threat in the 59th district. Rivalries with such teams as Shelby Valley and Johns Creek keep each season new and exciting. So I guess you could say the more things change, the more they stay the same. Girls varsity softball, on the other hand, hasn't been around nearly as long as basketball. But in their short time, they've done an awesome job. The first team was started in 1983 by Mayo Clark Jr. Since then, they've won 8 district championships, 1 regional title, and had 10 winning seasons. So even though the girls may not have got the publicity of the boys, I think it's true that we can say we've made a mark on PHS history. That's it.
Hi, my name is Prakash and I'm interviewing Mr. Tom Swartz, the principal of Pikeville High School, from 1976 till the present day of 1992. Mr. Swartz.
Yes, ma'am.
What brought you to Pikeville?
Well, I was an applicant, like many others, back in the summer or the spring of 1976, and I received a phone call from the former superintendent, Mr. Charles Spears. At that time, I was principal of a little school, community school in northern Kentucky, and a friend of mine at Eastern called me that knew Mr. Spears and said, there's an opening in Eastern Kentucky that you might be interested in, a larger school system, you know, better salary, fringe benefits, etc. So I said, well, we'd be interested in it. So that started the process. We called the superintendent Spears at the time, and he wanted us to come down for an interview. And at the first date we met, the latter part of April, he said, we'll let you know something in June. We have several applicants. And we said, fine, thank you. So we packed our bags and went back to northern Kentucky. And about the middle of the next week, he called again and said, could you come back again this weekend? We'd like for you to meet with some board members and talk, seriously. And I said, well, we can come back down. So we loaded up the kids, which were small at that time, and dropped them off at the in-laws on the way down and came down to visit with Mr. Spears and the board. And we negotiated a contract right there at the old school grounds at Wright Hall. And I was hired the spring of 1976.
Okay. What was your impression about when you got here?
Well, I had only been to Pikeville one other time before I actually drove in for the interview, and that was on a return vacation trip about 2 years before that. And my wife and I made a comment of what a quaint little community it was. In fact, we specifically remember driving by the elementary school and was very impressed with the community. So we were very pleased to move to Pikeville.
Well, what do you think of the school academically?
What do I think of the school academically? Well, I think the school has a tremendous academic program. They have high standards, and as a matter of fact, they have one of the best academic programs east of Lexington. We've been rated, at the top for many, many years, academically speaking, and have a large number of students that go on to college every year. And we have a very strong academic program. It's much more flexible now than it was when I first came here, but it's still very strong academically.
Has there been any major changes since you've been here?
In the academic program or in the school and overall? There's been a lot of changes. When one is at a school for 17 years, you see a lot of changes made. First year we were here, the big change was the flood. We came here in July of '76, in a brand new school, brand new building, and everybody was excited. And the flood came in April of '77, and that created quite a problem. There was approximately 6 foot of water in this part of the building, even where we sit here. If I stood up now, it'd be approximately to my nose. So this entire ground floor was completely submerged in water. And when I opened the doors and came back in the building 2 days after the flood, you couldn't get in here any earlier than that. I thought we would not be able to go back to school that year, but through hard work and a lot of community support, we only missed 2 weeks of school. And we made it up that summer, long days, weekends, and everything. And it was hard, but we made it up. Other big changes, time out. Forgot the question. Other major changes. Well, first of all, from the flood, the ground floor had to practically be rebuilt. All these walls were taken down. All the junior high walls were taken down. Anything that wasn't concrete or metal had to be rebuilt. All new wire was run. All new furniture was built or restored, and or mainly we had to buy all new furniture. But it took several years, but it was rebuilt. Other major changes, of course, several of our programs have grown in tremendous strength and numbers. The football program has progressively gotten better. Coach hired when I came here was a younger coach at the time and just beginning to build a program. I think he'd been head coach for about 2 years when I came here. And of course, everybody knows the story of our football program. It's grown to be a state contender almost every year. Like I said, the academic program has changed with more flexibility into the program now, especially now with the new reform. And we'll even have more changes next year in block scheduling potentially, and more students going to vocational school now. And I see a lot of positive things happening.
Okay, and I'm sure that you've heard kids from like county schools talk about how kids here are snobs. What impression has that put on you?
Well, I'm a little bit prejudiced. Yes, the county has names for us, and I'm sure we have a few for the county. Be that as it may, that's not good. Kids are good kids all over, and there are such things as good, strong competitiveness and good, friendly rivals. It gets carried away sometime. But our kids are good kids. They're morally straight. They're fundamentally sound. Like I say, they have high standards that's been imposed upon them from their parents, generation after generation. But our kids basically pretty good. Most principals will tell you that it's about 2% of the students that cause about 98% of the problems. And we have our 2% too. But most of our kids are not snobs. That's a perception that people have, around the area. And I'm sure our kids have some misperception about the county students too. But basically, we have good kids.
Is there any special memories that you had since you've been here?
Well, I mentioned the flood. That was kind of a negative memory. In fact, that one year, we had a tremendous winter. We had the 3 F's, the flood, the freeze, and I missed several days of school that year. And the fire, the old school, the junior high, burnt that year, which was located downtown on the old school grounds. My wife and I and family were visiting the Howards that night, and we came out, and the sky was ablaze, and the entire thing burnt down in a matter of hours before anybody had any time to basically call the fire department. That was one memory. Again, our state championships stand out in my mind. We had the 3 consecutive years of football championships. Of course, the first one was probably the best because it was the first time that we had been state championship. We were runner-up in '79 when we were here, but this was our first true Class A state championship. Then we had an academic state championship when Miss Keene was coaching the academic team in 1986, and that was not class, that was statewide. That was when Pikeville went to Louisville to compete in the state academic meet. The first year the Kentucky Academic Association had sponsored a state meet. We were part of the gang at that time and drove the bus for them, and we went down there, we thought, just to compete and try to do the best we could and, hang in there. And of course our kids hung in there real well. They ended up being the state champion. Our cheerleaders have done quite well over the years. The boys and girls squads both have been state champions. So I think, this says a lot for our student body. It says a lot for our clientele, our parents, our community support, the business. tax program, and it says a lot for our students that they have the hard work ethics to make all these things come together to win state championships.